All right. So hi, everybody. Welcome to our Intro to Cyber Threat Intelligence event hosted by Flatiron School. We're glad you decided to spend part of your morning, afternoon, evening with us, learning a little bit more about the in-demand field of cybersecurity. Next slide, please, Syed. All right, so I'm Jordan. I'm a marketing program manager at Flatiron School. I will be working behind the scenes this evening while you will learn from Syed, who's one of our awesome cybersecurity instructors at Flatiron School. Next slide. Before I hand it off to him, here is the agenda for this evening. So we'll start with an introduction to Flatiron School for those of you who are new friends. And we're going to wrap up with audience Q&A. So feel free to drop in questions into the Q&A box throughout Syed's presentation, and we'll do a big Q&A at the end, try to get through as many as we can. We're also happy to answer questions about both CTI, which Syed is going to be teaching about today, or what it's like to study at Flatiron School if you are considering a career in cybersecurity. Next slide, please. So a little bit about us. So Flatiron School was founded in 2012 in New York City. We're an award-winning bootcamp that has helped thousands of graduates break into tech and land jobs they love. We believe that education is the best investment you can make for your future, and we're committed to helping you learn the skills you need to change yours for the better. Hence our mission statement, which is here. Next slide. So a few highlights on this slide. I'll be sharing this full deck with you as part of the recap if you want to dig in further. But at Flatiron School, we currently offer career-changing courses in software engineering, data science, cybersecurity, and product design with flexible pacing options to fit your life. We have campuses across the country in the cities that are listed here. If you're in Colorado, you may be more familiar with our sister school, SecureStat, which has campuses in Denver and Colorado Springs. Our true differentiator, we feel, is our proven job search framework, which has helped thousands of our graduates break into the tech industry and land jobs at, next slide, companies like these. Along with many, many more companies of all sizes, big and small. Next slide. And the best boot camps get graduates jobs, and we are happy to prove it. So our 2020 jobs report is a third-party verified report. It's available on our website in full, but here is a peek. I'll also send this link as part of the recap, but our job placement rate for our 2019 graduates was 86%, and their average starting salary was just over $74,000. All right, so now I'm going to hand it off to your fearless leader for the evening, Syed, to get what you came here for. But a bit of housekeeping, just to remind you that we will be doing Q&A at the end of the session. Feel free to drop questions into the Q&A box. You will also be receiving a recording and a copy of these slides after we wrap. So I will be monitoring the Q&A box and let Syed take it from here.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. All right, so my name is Syed Hussein. I'm currently an instructor of the cybersecurity analytics program here at Flatiron School. I'm currently sharing my screen. Just want to make sure, Jordan, everyone can see it.
Yes.
Okay,
can see
perfect. It. So welcome everyone to an introduction to cyber threat intelligence. I'm going to refer to this as CTI for pretty much the rest of the presentation, but thank you all for joining in. I hope this is going to be a pretty fun conversation because personally, this is one of my favorite topics in cybersecurity. So a little bit about myself. First off, I have my Bachelor's of Science degree in Information Systems and Computer Science, and I concentrated in cybersecurity. So I've been interested in cybersecurity since the very beginning of my academic career. Since then, I've been able to obtain a little over 5 years of experience in security, and I specialize in cyber threat intelligence. So in that space, I've been able to work in threat hunting, advanced persistent threat research, scouring through the dark web to conduct research, doing open source intelligence investigations, and basically analyzing cutting edge malware, understanding how malware affects different systems and networks. I hold 10 certifications in cybersecurity and information technology. I also love to bake. I love to cook. I also love to modify cars on the side, and solely for racing purposes. So that's just a little bit about myself. I wish we had some time for us to do an intro to all of you, but it's close to 500 participants in today's session, so I don't think we'll have time to, but hopefully next time. All right, so to move forward, what is CTI? What is cyber threat intelligence? So I provided a pretty cool definition by Gartner. Basically, cyber threat intelligence is using evidence-based knowledge, including context mechanisms, different indicators. We're going to mention the word indicators quite a lot throughout the rest of the presentation. Also, action-oriented advice about an existing or emerging menace or hazard to assets. And I like the way that they say menace or hazard to assets, because it's a very general term, but this menace or this hazard can be anything. It could be specifically on the cyber front, so everything from systems and networks. Also, cyber threat intelligence, we do a lot of physical monitoring as well. So what are some of the physical threats to different organizations or people? So that's why I like this definition, because it's any type of menace or hazard. And using intelligence, it can be used to make informed decisions regarding how we respond to those hazards or that menace, to a company, to an industry, to a person, and so on. And so why CTI? Why do we use cyber threat intelligence, or why do companies or organizations use cyber threat intelligence? So rooted in data, cyber threat intelligence provides context, like who is attacking the organization. We're able to understand their motivation. We're able to understand what their capabilities are based off of some of the things they were able to conduct, or some of the actions they were able to take. Also, we're able to take a look at indicators of compromise, IOCs. That's a great way for us to conduct further gathering of those indicators of compromise. I'm going to go over that very soon. And using that, we can make informed decisions about current security, and also make informed decisions on how we can better security to help proactively defend such attacks in the future. So when we utilize this correctly, cyber threat intelligence knowledge allows organizations to prevent and mitigate attacks basically from any type of threat actors or any type of malicious individuals or intruders. These threat actors could be single malicious people, or it can be something we call APT, so advanced persistent threats. So these are large threat organizations who conduct these types of attacks. So it varies, but this intelligence, we're trying to gather it so that we can help prevent such attacks moving forward. And so one quick thing before we move forward, I definitely want to take some time to quickly clear up any confusion we have about the differences between data, information, and intelligence, because they're not all the same. So data consists of discrete facts and statistics. You can consider this the raw data. Basically, that's the way I like to think of it. Anything, the raw content is data. Information is when you kind of tie multiple data points together to answer some questions, maybe not too specific, but you can still answer some questions. So it's not necessarily the raw data anymore. And then intelligence is when you actually take time to analyze that data and information. This way you can uncover different patterns based off of what you're, through your analysis or what you've been able to find. You can make informed decisions based off of the intelligence you've been able to gather. So you can only imagine there is processes for actually turning data and information into intelligence. And again, we will be covering that in today's session. But it is a whole process, but you can only imagine once it is intel, you can imagine how useful it will be for individuals or groups or organizations. So where do we obtain data and information so that we can turn it into intelligence? This is going to be a very critical part of today's topic, because there's so much data and information from all these different sources across all different types of sources and categories. So I wanted to cover that in some detail today. So we have the surface web, we have the deep web, and we have the dark web. These are three different types of web. So that's another confusion I want to clear up today. There are three types of web: surface, deep, and then dark. We also obtain data and information through past or even present cyber attacks and intrusions that have occurred or that have been conducted by various adversary groups or threat actors. We have different open source tools that can help us obtain data and information. We also have proprietary tools, so those are paid, any type of paid or commercial tool. We can also get that same type of data or information. And also we have threat intelligence feeds and sharing platforms. So anytime that data and information is goes through our intelligence process where it's turned into intelligence, there's all different types of feeds and sharing platforms where multiple organizations and multiple governing bodies are able to are actually able to use that intelligence, and it's not being put to waste. So we turn data and information into intelligence by conducting a process called the intelligence life cycle. This will be covered today. After that life cycle, from there we can map that intelligence to various frameworks so that we can easily assess what's going on. We can easily assess, for example, if we see a certain indicator or an IOC, like I mentioned earlier, indicator of compromise. If we see a certain indicator, for example, we'll understand that, okay, we've seen this indicator in this attack in the past. And when we did see this indicator in an attack in the past, the attacker was able to do this, or the attacker was at this point of the attack process, for example. So that's just one very minor example of how we can tie that to specific frameworks. So let's talk about this in a little more detail, because I think we need some more detail here. So first, like we said, there's surface web, there's the deep web, and the dark web. So the surface web or the open web is another way of calling it. That's indexable and searchable content. So this is content that you can literally just search for on various browsers like Google or Yahoo, DuckDuckGo, Yandex if you're in Russia, for example. I mean, there's all different types of browsers that you can use, but this is all indexable and searchable content. You can see it is just the tip of the iceberg, okay? And this is very, very accurate. The surface web is not the entire web. Deep web is now not indexed and it's non-searchable content. It's not something you could just plug into a simple browser. You would have to use specific types of queries in your browser, for example, to obtain information from deep web. It's not right there at your fingertips like it is at the tip of the iceberg, for example. This is a pretty large portion of the total web, for example. Then we also have the dark web, and we're going to cover this in a little more detail today because I know you all might have some questions about this, but the dark web is content that you can only access via specific software, and sometimes you need specific hardware to access this. So let's cover that a little more. So the dark web, like I said, you need specific software to access this. We do that through overlay networks, okay? These are networks that are basically separate from typical networks that we are using on a day-to-day basis. So it's a network on top of a network, and that is where you're able to send and receive data on top of the normal networks that we're currently using. So the dark web was created for anonymous and safe browsing and communication and file sharing. So it is there, and it always will be there, solely because of how anonymous it can be. You can be really safe. You can be safe from any type of spying, for example. This is why the dark web was created in the first place. But like many other things, malicious groups or malicious people use the dark web for malicious things. So because of how anonymous it is for browsing and buying things, communicating with others, sharing files or sharing things with others, it's great for any type of malicious intent. So a lot of things can be used maliciously, like accessing underground markets, selling illegal things on those markets, selling user credentials or user information or browser cookies. I mean, all these are various things that can be sold on markets for pretty good prices, where people are constantly looking to buy this information for malicious actions. Also, there's underground forums where various things are being spoken about, or various information is just being posted on those underground forums for people to at least get some more information about certain things. And then also there's IRC, so Internet Relay Chat channels. And there's dark web chat channels called IRC channels, where a lot of various hackers or adversary groups, or even just malicious intruders have conversations with one another about attacks that they are looking to conduct, or an attack that happened, and maybe they have some more information about that attack. So talking about this, you can only imagine how us on the ethical side, so cyber threat intelligence analysts or any type of cybersecurity analyst, can use a lot of this type of information for good, for being able to report on such information or such things being mentioned, so that we're able to actually use that information for defending such threats. So more to come, but there are three major overlay networks that you can use to access the dark web. So we have Freenet, we have I2P, and Tor. These are all free. These are I have download links here, solely not to have you go in and go try out malicious things. It is here so that it can be used for good. You will need specific, not just the overlay network, but you'll need VPN access, virtual private network access, in order to anonymize yourself. And from there, you're able to actually begin going through dark web markets, going through dark web sources to for research purposes, for understanding what is being done, or what are some of the things that can happen in the dark web. And so that is one of the various sources of intel. Also, we have cyber attacks and intrusions. And this is a big one, because you can only imagine all of the cyber attacks and intrusions that have happened in the past, or that are happening right now. You can analyze that and assess everything that happened through thorough analysis of just to obtain some pretty good intelligence through the adversary's tactics, techniques, and procedures. That's another acronym. I know we have a lot of acronyms today, but TTPs is attacker tactics, techniques, and procedures. It's a way for us to see what are the various actions that an attacker is conducting at different phases of an intrusion or a cyber attack. And so through those different TTPs, we get IOCs. So I mentioned IOCs earlier, indicators of compromise. So we can see IPs that were used, different domains that were being connected to, hashes of files, different URLs that were visited, even threat actor groups. All of these are considered indicators of compromise. And we can, by gathering indicators of compromise in any type of attack, you're able to make some, that's all intelligence right there, while also conducting analysis of that to make sure that it is exactly what you're looking for. Also, we're looking at attack vectors. So what are the different types of malware that was deployed, or the specific malware that was deployed? The different steps that were taken during the attack from start to finish. So there's all different types of steps to an attack, and we're going to cover that very soon. At the different steps, we can gather indicators of compromise used at different steps of the attack, and that's how we're able to gather that intelligence of the attack. I mentioned naming conventions because that's something that really helps with understanding, okay, if there was a specific file that was seen on a infected host in a cyber attack, and it was named a certain cartoon name, for example, which we've seen, and we've seen that okay, this specific cartoon name for this type of file was used in a different attack a few months ago, and we've already assessed that this attack was done by threat actor A or AB or AC, for example. And so through naming conventions and different patterns that we're seeing in the different attacks and intrusions, we can start to hypothesize that, okay, perhaps that same threat actor group conducted this attack solely because we're seeing the same naming convention patterns as we did before. So that's all intelligence. That's another example. Also, the different vulnerabilities that were exploited. So vulnerabilities are any flaws in any type of system or an application, for example, or even a network. And so if that vulnerability is exploited in some way, if a specific vulnerability was exploited, for example, to conduct a certain type of intrusion, perhaps that can be turned into intelligence. We can see, okay, we've seen that this vulnerability is being exploited so that an attacker can conduct A, B, and C. And then next, after they conduct A, B, and C, they move on to another phase of the attack cycle. So that is all intelligence again. And plus, I mean, there's all other types of things that you can find, and anything within a cyber attack or intrusion can be used as data information and then turned into intelligence through that intelligence lifecycle. And so also we have open source intelligence. So open source is free. It is available to you. It's not something that you will ever have to pay for. It's out there, and it's something that you have access to at any point. And so there's various tools out there that are free for us to use, and we can gather intelligence from those different tools. For example, I mentioned some of them here. There are so many other tools out there. This is literally just a few of them. But Shodan, for example, is a search engine that you can access right now for any internet connected devices, or any devices that have ever been connected to the internet. You can search for their IP, or mainly their IP, for example, and gather lots of information of, okay, this device that was connected, when was it connected? What's some more information of, who owns this IP, for example, or where this IP is located? That's an example. Also, we have VirusTotal. It's a pretty cool tool for analyzing suspicious files or URLs. It also maps back to any time that a suspicious file or URL was detected on any antivirus detection across the globe. It's all one network, and it's all going to be there in VirusTotal, which is pretty crazy. So that's a pretty cool tool to use if you want to do that type of information. Census.io, it's a search engine for hosts and networks that compose of the internet, so very, very similar to Shodan. Domain Tools is going to give you a lot of intelligence on domains, so who registered the domain, who owns it, when it was registered, where it was registered, potential information of, if you were to visit that domain, what are some of the aspects of the web pages that you're seeing? Has that domain ever been used in like a phishing scam of some sort, for example? So that's domain tools, really cool tool. Polyswarm, that's a great tool for analyzing suspicious artifacts. You can get intel from a crowdsourced network. So any type of crowdsourced network is going to be really helpful because for a lot of these different tools, they're all crowdsourced, meaning all different types of companies and individuals or groups or firms or agencies are adding information to this one tool so that everyone can benefit from it. Also, there's multi-RBL check. This checks any IP against dozens of black hole lists. So there are so many different types of blacklists with IPs. So if an IP is a part of a blacklist, that means that the IP was seen in some type of attack or an intrusion, or was seen in a phishing attempt of some sort. And so you can check, let's say you have an IP in question, you can check that IP against multi-RBL check, for example, to see, okay, is this IP on any of our blacklists that are across the globe, for example. So again, these are just a few of the many tools that you can utilize, and definitely a lot of intelligence can be gathered through this. Now, this comes to non-technical open source intelligence. So a lot of information here, because this is the information and the different tools and platforms that you and I use pretty much on a daily basis. But it's all intelligence, and we can gather information and data from these different tools and platforms and turn them into intelligence, and they can be used against you, or they can be used for good, for any type of reporting and so on. So there are literally hundreds of tools out there, and I'm going to show you why there's hundreds. It's not just the ones that I mentioned here, but I mean, there's social media. So we have Twitter, which is a juggernaut in terms of the amount of information that you can gather. What is being mentioned, who's saying certain things, who's having negative sentiment against company A, what are the threats that they're posing against company A. People do that stuff on Twitter, for example. LinkedIn, there's different ways that, if anyone were to try to conduct any type of intelligence on LinkedIn, you can get information about an executive at a company, their whereabouts, positions they've held in the past, projects that they're working on. You can only imagine how that can be used. And then, of course, there's Facebook and Instagram, even MySpace. You can still visit MySpace, web pages, for example. And some people, back when people were using MySpace all the time, it was a time where social media was pretty new, and so people didn't understand that social media can be used against you, and the information that you post there can be used against you. And some people just, they never even deleted their web page, or never even deleted any information that they posted on there. So it's still there. We also have blogs and forums, so Reddit, Pastebin, Tumblr, even Visco. All of these are different types of blogs where you can gather intelligence on a company, on an individual, on a teammate. I mean, literally anything. Also, there's streaming apps. So YouTube, people are vlogging 45 minutes, an hour every single day and posting it to YouTube. So you can only imagine what you're able to obtain through taking a look at someone's vlog, for example. You can get items in someone's house. You can get, potential members of a family, and understand, the whereabouts of that family, or where they reside. All of this can be used against people, can be used against executives, and so on. Spotify, definitely something as well. TikTok, which is like people are just posting whatever they want on TikTok, and you can only imagine the type of intelligence if someone wanted to gather information about someone, they can gather a lot of intel through someone's TikTok posts or their whereabouts on TikTok. Clubhouse, which is pretty new. It's pretty cool tool for going through and just talking about literally anything you want to talk about. And sometimes people disclose a lot of information that they maybe shouldn't disclose. So all that can be used for intelligence. then we have, all different types of things. So we mentioned dark web already, but people search engines, we can gather intelligence through conducting people search engines. Usually it's free, but you can pay 20, 30 bucks and get a whole report on someone if you really want to, since a lot of it is public information. Dating apps, I wanted to mention that. So dating apps or fitness apps, if you wanted to connect with anyone, you can get information about, okay, where they reside, or where they were yesterday, or potential like fitness apps, you can track someone's geolocation. So it's a lot of information out there, a lot of data out there, and it can be turned into intelligence, either by us, by ethical analysts and researchers who are trying to use it for good and trying to use it for making informed decisions about how to protect ourselves. But also, the reason why I'm mentioning this is because this intelligence can also be gathered by malicious individuals and intruders who want to gather any information about you or your company or your group, anything like that. So just something to be mindful about. The data and information is all out there for us to use. And to continue with that, some really cool OSINT resources. There's the OSINT framework, and there's also Techniset. These are two really cool tools because you can literally just go to these URLs right here, access the tool, and basically you'll see you can click into any category and it'll give you subcategories. And if you click that subcategory, it'll give you all different tools to gather open source intelligence of whatever category you're looking at. So for example, if you want domain information, then there you can get whois records. So any of the records that of that domain, of who owns it and where it was registered and so on. Also, there's like IP address intelligence. There's different people search engines you can use. So definitely pretty cool to check that out to see the various tools that can be used. Techniset is also a cool one because specifically on the social media front, you can see a bunch of different tools out there on ways that you never knew people can gather intelligence on Instagram. In the past, I've had a case where we had to get some information in an open source intelligence investigation that I was conducting. We had to get information of a stolen camera, and it just so happened we used an Instagram open source intelligence tool where we're able to basically pull the exact images or pictures that were posted by an account. So basically you connect with an individual if you think, for example, they stole the camera, and we were able to actually take a look at the pictures that they were posting, the new pictures that they were posting. And there was this one tool, I forgot exactly what it was called, but it was here in Techniset. And basically we captured the pictures, and we're able to see metadata of that picture. So where the picture was taken, how many, what's the file type. Also, we were able to tell the exact serial number of the camera that took that picture. And that's all pretty interesting information that you never knew someone can actually pull. And we were able to actually find out that it was the exact serial number of the stolen camera. And so that's how we're able to get that type of information. So it's pretty interesting, the things that you can do with open source intelligence. But it's all intelligence there. And so to continue talking about tools, we also have those commercial tools, like I mentioned. So there's all different types of proprietary paid tools that different companies pay for to aggregate threat intelligence information to be used for that company and to be used to defend that company. So there's Record Future, Anomaly, Threat Connect. So those are threat intelligence aggregation and research platforms. There's FireEye, CrowdStrike. All these are different companies out there that have security and threat intelligence tools and services. Dragos is a pretty cool tool that is for any type of industrial control system or SCADA system threat intelligence. So An industrial control system, for example, are any of the systems that are being used in industrial sites. So the systems that are being used to power cranes, to power bulldozers, and even some of the devices that are within those different machinery or equipment. It's all connected to networks now. We have bulldozers that are being connected to GPS, for example, and so that is all connected to the internet, connected to networks. So that being said, it can be hacked into. So Dragos is, for example, a tool where we can conduct threat intelligence and different aggregation of intelligence of anything affecting industries like oil and gas and the energy sector and stuff like that. Also, like I mentioned, we have those threat intelligence feeds. So I mentioned early on that we have different tools out there that are basically full feeds of already processed intelligence by all these different companies, and they add their intelligence to these different feeds, and these feeds are shared out to all different companies or groups or agencies, and everyone can take advantage. So we have MS-ISAC, so that stands for Multi-State Information Sharing and Analysis Center. We have FS, which is for financial sector. We have H, which is for the healthcare field. We have LS, which is for legal services. So all these different industries have their own threat intelligence and information analysis and sharing centers where everyone can benefit from intelligence being shared to those feeds. And then also, of course, if you were to join any type of cybersecurity role, you will work with all different types of security technologies like SIMs, IDS and IPS, and EDR, TPR. I mean, all these different types of tools that you can use in any type of security analysis or engineering type of role. And you can gather data information from these different tools, and you can turn it into intelligence yourself. At the end of this presentation, I'm going to go over the different types of security teams there are if you were to ever want to join any type of security role. And I'm going to prove to you that threat intelligence can be used in every single type of security role if you were to join any type of security role. So that's pretty interesting. Now, with all these different tools, of course, you can use them on your own, especially the open source intelligence ones. So you can just search for them and bookmark them and use them as you want. Also, there are pre-built operating systems or virtual machines that you can download and run. And basically that virtual machine carries an operating system that is pre-built with all these different tools in there. So you don't even have to go through and download things on your own. So Kali Linux, for example, is a Linux operating system. And if you would like, you can download Kali Linux and run it in a virtual machine. And Kali Linux automatically comes pre-built with a bunch of really cool open source tools in there. Threat Pursuit is another Linux operating system. You can see that right here, for example. And for example, it's another tool that comes pre-built with a bunch of those threat intelligence tools, like I mentioned previously. Parrot OS is another one that's also Linux. And so that's another virtual machine that if you wanted to download it for free, it comes pre-built with a bunch of really cool tools. So I want to mention this here because you don't technically have to go through and go search for all these tools on your own and create your own environment to use these tools. You can just have them come pre-built in these different operating systems and then learn how to actually run them in a virtual environment and then use them as you want. It's pretty cool. Now, like I promised, we have the threat intelligence lifecycle. So this is how we're able to take data and information, and we're able to turn that into intelligence through a whole life cycle that is predefined in our entire community. And it has 6 distinct phases. So the direction, collection, processing, analysis, dissemination, and feedback. So you can see here, it's outlined pretty well. First, if you wanted to go into any type of intelligence project and gather intelligence for anything, you have to at least define some of the objectives of why you're trying to pull that intelligence. Then you would move on to the collection phase, which is where you're able to actually gather in the data and the information from all the different sources, like I mentioned previously. This is going to be a very long part of the phase because it's a lot of data and information to gather. You can't gather it all, so it's going to be something that you're going to have to, it's going to be targeted gathering of that type of information. Then you process that data. So this is going to be translating that data if it's coming from sources in Russia or sources in Iran, sources in Saudi Arabia. All of these, they have their own languages and they have to be translated correctly, or just evaluated to make sure, okay, this is going to work with our objective, for example, or it can be thrown away because it's not going to work with our objective. You also continue to do process and analysis of that data. Now, dissemination is delivering that intelligence to whoever the consumer is. So it can be a separate team in your company, it could be an individual that you're working with, and so on. And then, of course, they're going to have feedback, or the different teams are going to have feedback, and you adjust it as required, and then you continue that whole life cycle and keep going. So it is a whole process. It is defined. It does take time, but using these different sources, like I mentioned, you can gather all this type of data and information and turn that into intelligence. And now to kind of move forward from there, when we do have that intelligence, when we've already gathered all the data from all these sources I've mentioned, we've already processed it, so we have the intelligence. Now, how do we use that intelligence to actually move forward with helping to proactively defend that organization, or helping to make informed decisions about how to defend the organization, for example? This is how we're able to actually map it to different frameworks that are already there. So we have all different types of frameworks. These are 3 of them: the MITRE ATT&CK framework, cyber kill chain, and a diamond model. So let me go over that in a little detail, because these are really important to any type of, not just CTI team, but any type of cybersecurity team, because they're constantly working with these different types of frameworks when they're doing their day-to-day analysis. So for example, the MITRE ATT&CK framework is a whole framework that was developed by a company called MITRE. And so what they did was they have different categories of attacks, and they basically put together a whole list of the various actions that can be taken in each of those different categories. So for example, in the initial access category, which is when an attacker has initial access of the web app that they are about to go breach, or the company that they're a breach, or even the physical breach, that initial access that they have. There are 11 different techniques, according to MITRE, where an adversary can get into your network, for example. Or if they want to actually execute malicious code or execute a script in your environment to conduct certain tasks, or to actually move forward with that breach, there are 34 ways that they can do that. So you can only imagine if we were to be conducting all this gathering of information and data to turn into intelligence, we can map that intelligence to the various techniques that are used across the whole attack chain. And so, for example, let's say in the execution phase, we've seen in using, for example, a past intrusion of some sort, that there was a specific malware that was used. Now we use a tool like VirusTotal, for example, like I mentioned previously, which is an open source tool, to run analysis of this malware on VirusTotal, run hash information on VirusTotal to get more information, and basically we map that to the execution tactic. And so you just go down the chain and you map everything you can to the various different tactics. And then from there, you have a whole informed attack. So basically all the information of an attack, you can see all the different techniques, tactics, techniques, and procedures that were used by the adversary throughout the entire attack, which is pretty beneficial information. And I don't have time to go through an example of every single category, but you can only imagine the kind of information that you're able to, the way that you're able to organize the information through this type of framework. Very similar to MITRE ATT&CK, we have the cyber kill chain. This is a separate framework developed by Lockheed Martin. So this is, they actually categorize attacks in 7 phases. So reconnaissance is where they're maybe harvesting email addresses. The different attackers are using those different open source tools like I mentioned. They're even using social media or using streaming apps or dating sites, fitness sites, all these different types of sources. And this is where they're able to get the initial information they need to actually conduct the attack. And then there's weaponization, delivery, exploitation, and you move down the chain. So this is another framework where you're able to map these different indicators of compromise and the TTPs to the various categories here in the different phases here in the kill chain. Then also we have the diamond model. This one's it looks a little short and a little easy, but this one is really powerful because it literally maps it to 4 categories. There's the adversary, so any indicator of compromise or any any type of indicator really that maps to who the adversary is. Then we also have the TTPs, the tactics, techniques, and procedures, or the capabilities of that attack. We have the victim, so who the victim is, what was done to the victim itself, or himself, herself, for example. And we also have the infrastructure, so the tools or the systems that were used to actually carry out that attack. That would be under the infrastructure point in the model, diamond model. So just an example of another framework that you can that you can do. And what a lot of mature cybersecurity teams out there do is they have a diamond model that's filled out for every single portion of the cyber kill chain, for example. So they have one diamond model that is for the recon phase, and then another diamond model that's filled out for the weaponization phase. Or if you were to go back to the MITRE ATT&CK framework, you have a diamond model that is solely for the defense evasion phase of the attack, or a whole diamond model specifically for the collection phase of the attack. So it can go really down in the weeds, but the more hard you go really on this type of analysis and reporting, the better it is for a company or for your client or for anyone you're working with to give this type of information. And so it is a lot of information and data that can be turned into intelligence, but I hope this was a good way of helping you understand just how much there is in this field. There's only so much I can talk about in just 1 hour. I wish I was given a few more hours to kind of go into a little more detail here, but I hope this was something that would actually get you a little more excited about it, so you can go through and conduct your own research, your own analysis, maybe play around with these different tools or explore them and see what type of information you can get. And like I promised earlier, this is my personal list that I put together of various cybersecurity teams that you can join if you were to, get a cybersecurity certification or go through this Firearms School program, for example, or conduct training on your own to get into cybersecurity. And so all of these different teams are using cyber threat intelligence or intelligence in general to better their day-to-day workflows. They use it for their analysis or their engineering that they're doing on a day-to-day basis, or for any type of reporting, for example. So it is a lot of really good information. So for example, let's say we have a vulnerability management team. A vulnerability management team in security is basically their entire day is just prioritization of patching of vulnerabilities of all of the tech that they have in their whole infrastructure. So a company can be running HR platforms, they can be running different security tools, they can be running internal social media or internet, for example, and all of these are prone to vulnerabilities. And so they are constantly conducting vulnerability assessments of the various tools that they have, and then patching those vulnerabilities with the latest patches so that everyone's up to date on security. So a vulnerability management team can use cyber threat intelligence, for example, in a way to actually prioritize patches for their different systems. So let's say the vulnerability management team, they basically run a vulnerability scan on their entire infrastructure, and they get back 500 vulnerabilities to patch. I don't think it would be a really good idea to actually go through and patch all 500. Maybe it's not needed. Maybe it's just totally unnecessary to do that. So using intelligence, you can gather information based off of past intrusions, gather information based off of research from these open source tools or commercial tools to gather intelligence of these different vulnerabilities to understand, okay, if this vulnerability wasn't patched, for example, then this can happen. And this has happened previously, according to this intrusion, or this can happen based off of this intelligence that I've gathered on this tool, for example. And so that way you can prioritize, okay, these are the vulnerabilities, the critical ones that have to be patched today or this week, and the other ones can wait, or maybe we don't even have to patch them at all, because sometimes that even is the best course of action, for example. So that's just an example of vulnerability management. And I can honestly give an example for every single tool, every single team here, solely because of how important intelligence is to any type of security team. And cyber threat intelligence is a part of the industry that is growing rapidly. Technically, it was there since the very beginning of information systems and technology, but then cybersecurity started to become something that was, its own part of the information technology field, and then cyber threat intelligence is now becoming its own part of the cybersecurity field. And so, you can conduct cyber threat intelligence in all these different types of teams, and in all these different types of industries and sectors. And all these different industries and sectors have their own threats that are specific to that industry or sector. So of course, they all have the same type of threats. So technology, healthcare, finance, law, they all have ransomware, they all have phishing and scams and so on. But then some of them have threats that only affect that industry. So for example, in media and gaming, a big threat to that industry is what's leaked source code for the various games out there for a gaming company or a media company, for example. Where are some of the tools out there that we can monitor for leaked source code? We can monitor Reddit, subreddits of gaming gaming Reddits, for example. We can monitor Discord servers of different gamers who are just talking about the various the code that they've been able to pull from a major game, for example. We can pull from internet relay chat, so the IRC, like I mentioned, and the dark web of these different gamers talking about leaked source code there. And that's just a threat to the gaming industry. We also have the threats to energy, oil, and gas, like I mentioned, with the various threats to bulldozers and industrial sites and SCADA systems that are connected to the network in those different sites, and the potential for destruction is worse with those type of threats because you're putting human lives at stake. If, for example, a bulldozer were to be breached for example, it can be used maliciously, it can be used for physical attacks and so on. So just an example of, the different teams that there are out there, how they can utilize intelligence, and then also how they differ based off of the different industry that team is working in. And so, that basically covers what I wanted to cover today. Again, I wish I had a little more time to walk through some of this stuff in a little more detail, because I know it was a lot, but I wanted to go over the fundamentals of threat intelligence and perhaps get you to be a little more excited about it. So maybe after this this session, you can go through and maybe take a look at some of the tools I've mentioned, or some of the resources I've put out there. Jordan will be sending you all the recording to my presentation, and also the full slide deck, so you can have all the resources here, at your fingertips, which could be pretty helpful. So I hope that was valuable. I hope you enjoyed this this talk. But I think we can take some time now for Q&A, if that's possible.
Yes, we have all sorts of questions coming in, Syed. So you might know better. Do you want to open up the Q&A and see? Let's see.
Yeah.
If there are specific questions about Flatiron School and our programs, I'm going to send a direct link to set up some time with our admissions team to get those questions answered. So Syed, if you want to take questions around kind of the content of CTI, I think that makes sense.
Okay, absolutely. Okay, so let's go through here. Sorry, there's a lot of questions.
I know. Lots of questions about the recording and the slides. Just to reiterate, yes, you will receive a recording of this presentation as well as the slides. I will get those to you ASAP.
Absolutely. Okay, so okay, one question was, what are some good VPN providers? So there's an open source one literally called OpenVPN. That's something that I use, for example. It is free, so something that you can just download, and you can automatically have at least a VPN connection available on your system if you ever wanted to use it, which of course can be beneficial in many ways. So OpenVPN, or a lot of companies out there use something called Citrix. So they have their own VPN solutions for the enterprise, and that's another one that's used pretty often. Another question is what is an attack vector? So an attack vector is basically how the attack is actually conducted, and what was done to actually conduct that attack, for example. So an attack vector can be malware that was used. It can be even a physical type of attack. So if you want to conduct a physical attack, for example, you want to physically get into a company, different people use things like social engineering, for example. So you can basically trick your way into getting the PIN number for an office, for example, or you can trick your way to get someone to open a door for you to get into the office, and you automatically got in. So all those are considered different attack vectors. Is Shodan.io? Yes. So Shodan is Shodan.io. They're the exact same tool there. Are open source tools available for free to anyone? Yes. So any open source tool is going to be available to anyone. There shouldn't be any type of purchase for that tool. Sometimes the open source tools have a stronger version of that tool that you can pay for, but for the most part, that's usually not necessary, and you're able to actually just use that tool for free. So there's Shodan, there's Domain Tools, VirusTotal. Those are all free tools that you can utilize at any time. Yeah, someone said, what about Yelp? Yelp is a good one. That can be an open source intelligence tool technically or platform that you can gather information about a company or about a restaurant in this case, anything really. I mean, it's different platforms or sources that you would never think of. So I'm glad you mentioned Yelp. That's a really good one. With the Flatiron content augment skills already in place with this Security Plus or CISM or CISA? Yes. So the Flatiron School curriculum, I would say in confidence that it will help you be completely ready for the Security Plus certification, which a lot of people say is an entry-level certification, but again, in my opinion, as a security professional, I do believe it's an intermediate level certification solely because of just how much content is being discussed on that in the training for that cert. So I would say that's a an awesome cert to get, but this Flatiron School curriculum is going to help you be completely ready for the Security Plus. As for CISM or CISA, portions of the Flatiron School curriculum can be tailored towards those specific certs, and also portions of the curriculum can be tailored to all different types of certs. But I don't think it would be ready for you to actually take those certs. But I would say in confidence, it will be ready for the Security Plus, for example.
There's a couple questions about coding and the relevance to cybersecurity. Do they need to know Python or a specific language? What do you recommend?
Yeah, so in cybersecurity in general, there can be the need for understanding how to code and how to use programming languages, or at least how to read them. My recommendation would be to learn a programming language called Python, for example, or JavaScript. These are scripting languages that really help with a lot of the day-to-day tasks that you will have to conduct if you were to work in the cybersecurity field. The Flatiron School cybersecurity analytics or cybersecurity engineering curriculums go over Python in some pretty good detail. So that's just an example of one of the main programming languages. But you can't, let's say you are a software engineer or you like software engineering and you understand all these other types of programming languages, then you can still have an opportunity to work in cybersecurity, because we need individuals who understand code in a lot of detail, so that maybe you can be like a secure software developer or a secure code reviewer. So you're analyzing the code to make sure that it is free of flaws or free of potential threats, for example. That's a pretty cool field too. So, so that's on the programming language side. Okay. Are those operating systems like Kali Linux free? Yes. All the operating systems I mentioned, so any Linux-based operating system is free to use. You will be able to find any type of download, but you would probably wouldn't recommend booting up that operating system on your personal machine. I would recommend just booting it up on a virtual machine, and then you can boot up all these different types of operating systems as you want and play around with it, explore, see how they work. But the ones I mentioned that are specific and they are pre-built with all these different cybersecurity tools and threat intelligence tools, those are all free, which is nice. Okay. How does the PACE thing work? How does learning differ from 20 weeks to 60 weeks? Yes. Okay. So the Flatiron School curriculum, it's all based on different paces, and so if you were to do the 20 weeks or the 60 week, for example, these are different paces, but you're going to be covering the exact same material. It's just a matter of how long you want to take to cover it and be finished with the entire curriculum. So the 20-week program, of course, is going to be a little more intense. You'll be working through multiple courses at a time, and you'll have more due dates, and you'll have to complete more projects and assignments. Each week, for example. The 60 weeks, you'll be doing the exact same content and learning the exact same stuff, but it'll just be span over a longer period of time so that you have more time. For example, let's say you have a full-time job, or you have your family, or you have other personal things that you're working on. You can still take that 60-week pace, for example, and take your time and complete the whole program in 60 weeks, for example.
This is an interesting question.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think cybersecurity will still be a popular thing and a good job in 10 to 15 years?
Yeah. So I'm not going to be biased or anything, because I know I'm in cybersecurity, but I do strongly believe that cybersecurity is going to be at the heart of every single organization, and it's going to stay that way and get even stronger every single year that passes, solely because all of these different companies are susceptible to cyber attacks, or even physical cyber attacks, if you will. So that being said, because it is every single company's problem, every single company out there is going to want to hire at least one cybersecurity analyst. If it's a really small company, and of course, if it's larger companies, they're going to need really strong cybersecurity analysts, or engineers, or researchers, or consultants who are able to protect the organization. Because no matter what you're doing in the organization, whether you're selling, you're a restaurant, you still have information or data or assets that if they were to be breached, it can ruin your reputation, it can make you have to close down, it can ruin your business or your income. So cybersecurity is literally at the heart of every single organization. So yeah, I do strongly believe in 10, 15 years, it's going to be even stronger and even more necessary than it is right now. Because also, not to really go down a tangent here, but these different adversary groups and threat actor groups, like I mentioned, they are getting crazier, and they're becoming a lot more capable. They're becoming more advanced, and they're thinking of new tactics, techniques, and procedures, TTPs. They're using all these different types of tools and gathering intelligence from these different tools to conduct these different types of attacks. So they're getting stronger. So our field has to become stronger too. That's my answer to that one.
All right, let's do one more question, Syed.
Yeah.
If you don't mind pulling up our kind of wrap up slides too. Yes. But the question is, Syed, where do you teach? Which location?
Oh, so, well, I'm based out of Washington, D.C., but I actually teach online. So we have a whole online program for Flatiron School. So our whole team is online. Everything is done online. So there's no in-person for this specific program. But basically, that is me. But then we also have in-person in Washington, D.C., and we also have in-person in actually multiple different cities. I think, Jordan, you might be able to answer that in a little more detail.
Yeah. Syed is one of our flex instructors. So for our courses that we offer at that 20, 40, or 60-week pace, Syed would be working with you on our cybersecurity engineering course. And I'll have the list of campuses that I can share as well in our recap. Just a couple of things to close us out here. Syed, you can go to the next slide.
Yes.
So if you enjoyed learning with us today, we have a couple more cybersecurity related events coming up. One is actually tomorrow. One of Syed's colleagues, Asta, who's another instructor for us, will be going over malware and Microsoft Exchange. So diving into that breach that we are seeing in the headlines right now. We have a cybersecurity career paths panel with a few folks working in some different areas of cybersecurity, learn what they do day to day, see which route may make sense for you. And then if you're interested in our programs at Flatiron School, if you're just thinking about potentially making a career change, our Cybersecurity 101 info session is the place to come. We go over basically the job opportunities in cybersecurity right now, looking ahead, the benefits of working in cyber, and then go into our specific programs that we offer. You can also see all of our available events on our website at flatironschool.com/events. Next slide, please. And lastly, if you are really kind of inspired and passionate about the subject that you heard about tonight, you may be interested in pursuing a career in cybersecurity, and we'd love to have you consider doing that at Flatiron School. So you can get your questions answered. I know we got a ton we didn't get to tonight about our program specifically. If you want to connect one-on-one with an admissions rep, you can do so at this link that I will be sending you in recap. And if you are ready to pull the trigger and excited to take your next step towards a career in tech, you can do that by applying online to flatironschool.com, or if you are in Colorado Springs or Denver, you would be applying through our sister school, SecureSet. All right. So thank you so much to everyone for joining us. This is one of our biggest crowds we've had for an event. So thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us, and big round of applause for Syed for sharing all of his knowledge with us and taking time out of his evening to help us learn a little bit more. So thank you to everyone. Have a good rest of your evening, and we hope to see you online again soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.